realised that I couldn't earn the money that I wanted to earn within that profession, and then went into recruitment. From recruitment, went into business development, and then a good friend of mine, Louis, who is the owner, said, "Hey Sam, I've got this new idea." He already had a loan company already doing like almost bridging loans, so secured against property. So I've got this idea for the student finance company. It's an untapped market. There's a new piece of technology in Australia that they're using to underwrite younger people's bank accounts, right? So people who didn't have a thick credit history. Because at the time, there wasn't anything. So if you kind of didn't have any credit, then you would have a poor score, right? No, the banks couldn't underwrite you.
Hello guys, and welcome back to the Face8r podcast. Today we have a very special episode in a long line of very special episodes. We are travelling up and down the UK to visit some of the industry's leading practitioners and experts in their fields, whether that is in aesthetics or in beauty. These people have influenced their industry in some way, have achieved huge success, and are full of amazing stories, inspiration and advice for both you and for me. We'll be visiting them on site at their own clinics, salons or studios and getting their views, their thoughts and opinions on their careers. There will be something in every single discussion to take away and apply to your own business. So stick around and grab yourself a pen. Sometimes all it takes is a small nugget from an entire conversation that can spark the biggest change in your business. So without further ado, it's time to welcome our guest. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Face8r podcast. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm here in Manchester at Payl8r. Those of you that do use our app will know about Payl8r. A lot of you do use the finance option, but those of you who don't, please keep listening because it is something that you should definitely be implementing into your business. But today I've got Chief Operating Officer at Payl8r, so that's COO, Sam Fogerty. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got obviously loads of questions for you. I do appreciate you giving us some of your time. How did you get here to this position that you're in today? How did you get to be the COO of Payl8r? What does that journey look like?
Well, it wasn't a conventional path by any means.
Okay.
So, I'll just take you back how I started, right? So, I went to university, I got a degree in criminology, contemporary cultural studies, went back, became a teacher, taught for a year, realised that I couldn't earn the money that I wanted to earn within that profession, and then went into recruitment. From recruitment, went into business development. And then a good friend of mine, Louis, who is the owner, said, "Hey Sam, I've got this new idea." He already had a loan company already doing like almost bridging loans, so secured against property. So I've got this idea for the student finance company. It's an untapped market. There's a new piece of technology in Australia that they're using to underwrite younger people's bank accounts, right? So people who didn't have a thick credit history. Because at the time, there wasn't anything. So if you kind of didn't have any credit, then you would have a poor score, right? No, the banks couldn't underwrite you. He said, "We've got this new technology." I said, "Great, okay, sounds really interesting." And then I was like, okay, well, it's a big jump for me because I was in employment, in a good role, good pay, good holidays, and I would have to join a startup and basically be self-employed.
Gamble.
Yeah. So I was like, humming and ahhing, and I was like, I don't know. And then I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Working Week.
Okay.
And I was like,
I've read
this sounds good to me. So I was like, yeah, be my own boss. Like, yeah, I'm here for that. And obviously the money and where I could kind of take it was very interested to kind of make something my own. I'm not very good at being man-managed or kind of, maybe just being managed really. So like, I always knew that I just kind of wanted to do something where I could have the autonomy, right, to kind of see something through, build something. So I decided to take the leap, and I think that was back in early 2016. So joined, no finance experience whatsoever. I am pretty dyslexic. Well, I am dyslexic, but very, very bad with maths. Very, very bad with figures, and my spelling is not great. So did I ever think that I would be in a job where it was finance?
Where it's money and numbers and
So no, I didn't. So I'd never thought about doing finance before, especially fintech. I love technology, but I'm not a coder. I don't have a background in that. So I was purely coming from a sales environment and essentially just using my personality to really, that's all kind of
but
I
that's
had,
a
really.
big part of it, though, your personality, I think, especially in a startup. Like, a lot of times, even if you've got, a really good CV to go with it that matches the industry you're in, it's not always about that. It's about being able to get that foot in your door and talk your way in and actually have people listen to you and your ideas. So do you think that your background doing all those various things, you're coming from the sort of criminology and everything you did at uni and then going in and doing all your teaching and all that other stuff, do you think that's helped you in some way? Because I always say to people when I've got them on the podcast, no experience is pointless. Like, everything feeds into that next leg of the journey in your career.
Yeah, no, definitely. They're just building blocks, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're growing as a person, you're developing new skills. I think going to university is great for kind of your personal growth in terms of meeting people, dealing with situations where you're thrust into something where you don't know anyone, you've got to make friends quickly, you've got to develop relationships with people, you've got to... so you're just developing all the time. Might not necessarily be within a certain discipline, but I don't think that matters.
No.
Because, everything you do just helps
I agree.
towards
I
it.
think there's always something transferable. You can always take something out of some work experience you've had,
Absolutely.
no matter how small it is, and that will always translate to that next thing that you're doing.
Yeah, and it's about dealing with people. All businesses is dealing with people. So... you find people that are good at their certain disciplines and they're the ones you hire, obviously, but it's all around people, how you can, even sales. So I suppose coming from a sales background helped me a lot. Like, if I just take one step back, I used to work on a market stall. So I had my own market stall. I grew up working on the market, selling dog beds and leather belts. I was very used to selling. So, of course, that was very advantageous because when you're growing a business, it's about selling yourself, selling your product, selling what it could do for that business. So they were all vital. Yeah,
well, I'll definitely come on to your background because I know that you cite your mum quite a bit in some of your stuff, so we'll definitely come on to that. Do you ever sort of look back on, where you're at now and just sit for a minute and think, like, wow, I've actually done this? Because I find... as women, we're inherently really bad at doing that. We're already, like, we've moved on to the next thing. Like, even if you've won an award or you've achieved something really big, I don't know, are you the same? Do you give yourself a minute to actually appreciate your work and hard work and where you've come from?
Yeah. I do. Like, even today, I look back and think, I can't believe, I just actually can't believe that we've done it. But you get, and maybe other people will relate to this. I think, especially with me, and I don't mind saying it, I get imposter syndrome. So, you've done all of this. I've built the business up in the last 9 years, but I still look back and think, yes, I can't believe that we've managed to achieve that as a team. But also, like, oh God, do I know what I'm doing? I don't really know what I'm doing. Do I? It seems to be working. Like, maybe I do know what I'm doing. I don't know.
I think that's normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, from any walk of life.
And I don't know if that's... Sorry, I cut you up. Sorry. I don't know if that is just a female thing or whether maybe men feel like that as well.
I think they do. Because I get, obviously, a variety of different people in various walks of life, various jobs, various stages of their career as well. And I hear it from everyone, really. You get the odd one who isn't, and that's great, like, good on them. But I think a lot of people do. It's whether that they own it and know about it. I think sometimes it holds people back because they genuinely listen to that, whereas you've already given it its title that it's imposter syndrome. You know that that's not the reality. So you're able to talk yourself down from that and still push through. Whereas I think some people hold themselves back because they listen to it's too strong a voice and actually they really believe in that voice. So I think that's the difference. It's being able to put a tag on it and think, I'll park that there.
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
I feel like
don't
that. But
indulge in it too much.
Don't indulge in it. Yeah, that's perfect way of putting it. So your mother, we'll come on to her because you do cite her as your biggest inspiration.
Yeah.
And you think probably why you've got to where you are. So
100%.
You've mentioned your markets. Just tell me a little bit about that and that relationship and how that's kind of helped you get to where you are.
No, she is definitely the driving force. So if anyone else can relate to it, parents got divorced. We lived a very nice lifestyle before they got divorced. It wasn't a nice divorce, really. She wasn't left with much money, having built up a business with my father. And so here she was, back to stage one again. No money in the bank. And she was like, what am I going to do? So her and my dad, when they first met, did the mini mart. So they did all the markets and then got a mini mart shop. And she was like, well, I'll have to go back to what I know. I'll go back on the markets again. So that's what she did. And I think just seeing her resilience, her tenacity to say, do you know what, I'm just going to go back to the start and I will just, bring myself back up again and smash it, So she started working the market. She's working 7 days a week. She'd drop me off in a red Mazda van at school. She'd pick me up at 6 o'clock in the evening. I'd work with her every weekend. I would work every Easter holiday, summer holiday. Every holiday, I would be on the market stall. And so, come rain or shine, putting up a 40-foot market stall, snow, everything. So, and I think that was some great development for me throughout, and again, it just starts off with your sales, working with people, but also your resilience and how kind of,
And some days you'll have a bad market day. You'll go and it'll suck and it was totally pointless. And being able to get up and go the next weekend and go, we're going to go again, let's go again. And you have a fantastic weekend and you do loads of sales and that's a big part of business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just being able to pick yourself back up and not every day you're going to succeed, right? No. There are going to be some failures and you just move on. So she's definitely a fundamental driving force. And from the market stall, she ended up then buying her own warehouse. And then from that, she started buying property. And now she's got a short-term holiday rental business and is kind of semi-retired. So she literally is surpassed where she was before.
And I bet, when she went back on the markets, I bet she wasn't thinking for a moment that that's where she would be, that she'd end up with this, entire business and this structure that works for her retirement as well. You can't necessarily foresee all of that. I think that's for those people listening, a lot of people get trapped in this idea of knowing what's going to be happening in 5 years and 10 years, and you don't always know. You've just got to trust in that moment that you're on the right path, you're doing the right things, and just keep ploughing through it.
And I think it's important to, especially as women, to be financially independent, right? Because had she been when she left her husband, then she would have been okay, type of thing. But she wasn't financially independent. So looking at that dynamic, I was like, no, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a similar situation with me. My mum's always worked, but Dad's always kind of took care of the bills, and I honestly don't know if she'd know what she's doing with what bill. At that, if anything was to happen, because it's always been down to him. And I agree with you. I think that's why I'm the way I am. Is it's my money. I want to have my money, whether I'm married or whatever. I think that's a really important thing. And it's not for everyone. You do what you want.
What's around the corner?
You don't. You don't know.
I
know. Yeah, it's true. You say this as a married woman. I know you're engaged. You're married now. Married now. Yeah, we say this as married women, but it is true. So I think it's important. But yeah, moving on a little bit from your background then. Your background wasn't in finance or tech, as you've said. So what was it about the student finance company, as it was at the time, that made you take the leap? So what was it about that proposition that he said to you that made you finally go, you know what, I am just going to actually grab this opportunity and run with it?
It was, one, it was the industry that it was in. It was starting to evolve quite quickly. I think Klarna was in Sweden but hadn't come to the UK yet. And it was all about opportunity. We saw for me, Louis had found an opportunity that others weren't doing. So there was a space in the market. There was a space in the market to underwrite a demographic that nobody could underwrite. So it was the technology that was being used, the fact that there seemed to be an opportunity in the market. It was the right time for it. So that's what, and also the autonomy to grow something and take ownership of it and see where you could get to. And yeah, just being able to build. Yeah, I was just ready. I was ready to build something, prove it to myself. I knew working with Louis would be great. We're great friends anyway. I knew he'd be able to give me the autonomy that I needed to let me kind of do my own thing and kind of get to where I am, rather than being someone on top of me, just like telling me what to do all the time. I hate that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's knowing when to, because it's hard. You get a lot of people sort of saying, I get so many people saying to me, I want to start my own business, but I don't know what to do. I want to start my own business, but I don't know whether I should just do it. And I think sometimes you have to just weigh up those pros and cons. And if the list is even slightly longer than the cons list, go for it. Because I don't think you ever will otherwise. Yeah. You're always going to find maybe a potential reason why you shouldn't take the leap.
I didn't have to take the leap from being well employed with a good package to go into work for myself essentially, which is what I did for the first 2 years of Payl8r. And for a startup, that could have failed, right?
It could have.
It could have failed.
Like
but
anything.
you just got to take the leap of faith because, no one wants to look back and, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, well, you would have.
Yeah.
You'd be looking at it now going, wow, I missed that opportunity right there. So what has your experience been for building a brand like Payl8r? How have you gone about building that brand? And has it been, because you were so new and fresh in the market, and a pioneer actually in the market that you were going for, was it relatively easy in some respects, or was it just as hard as a really saturated market with everybody trying to do the same thing?
Yeah. I think for Payl8r's journey, when we first started, marketing, PR and all of that was on the back burner. So for us, it was about getting the right technology and just selling it to the right merchants. So because we connect with retailers who then feed us customers through referrals that we then lend to, it was the whole kind of brand building piece came a little bit later on, if I'm honest, because we needed to what's the word? See if the product worked, see if our model, we needed proof of concept. So in the early days, it was about those strategic partnerships with merchants that would send us customers where we could test our product worked for their demographic. So there was no marketing. We did a relatively cheap website. It was just about the doing at that point.
Get it done.
Just
and
get it done.
Shown to everyone.
So we didn't have any marketing budget. I didn't do PPC or any paid ads. I literally old-fashioned. Pick up the phone, emails, LinkedIn. So it didn't cost us anything. And that way, I think we got our first we went live with our first client in the October of 2016, which was Beauty Works. So that was kind of in the beauty sector, albeit not aesthetics, but beauty. So we went with those guys first, and then it kind of snowballed on. It's only, I suppose, from a brand building perspective, I would say that we started maybe in year 2 to kind of put some more emphasis on building that brand. But our retailers that were promoting us on our website helped towards that. Then the customer base helped towards it. So it's actually, it wasn't as integral to Payl8r as it might be to maybe the audiences building their beauty brands. But I can't say it wasn't something that we were really focused on. And it's kind of grown very organically as a brand. And I would say only now we are putting more emphasis on it. Like we only got a PR agency 2 years ago. So it's,
I suppose you're kind of at that crunch point though now, aren't you, where you've done a lot of that organic growth system where you feed, like each person kind of feeds the beast in a way.
Yes, that's it.
But you kind of come to that point where it's like, for us to get to that next level, we've now probably got to put a marketing machine behind it.
That's it.
I think a lot of businesses kind of get to that point as well.
And I think with the way that we were, because of the way that we were lending was very new, we couldn't grow aggressively because we didn't know if it was going to work. We did, no one had underwritten a 19-year-old with no credit profile. No one had done it. No one had used open banking in the UK. No one had even heard of it at that point. It was before the PSD2 directive came into play. So open banking wasn't a thing. It was like screen scraping technology. So you were having to people had to trust in a third-party provider to log into their online bank. Well, of course, that was a bit like hairy for people, wasn't it? They were like, oh, I don't feel comfortable about this. And so we did that for the first 3 years until open banking became kind of a thing, a known thing. So we couldn't grow very aggressively. So obviously that impacted how much time and focus we put into marketing, PR and building brand because people in the UK didn't understand it as a concept yet. So I suppose it was an education piece around that and letting the industry kind of catch up. Yeah. And then now that, the average consumer, myself for example, understands the concept, it's now easier to bring more and more people on board through marketing. Yeah, I understand that. Interesting. So as a woman in fintech then, and in a leadership role, how has the journey been for you personally? Because I think that's quite a difficult combination. Finance, tech, and a woman in a leadership position. There's not a lot of you. No, there's not. I think there's around less than 20% in fintech in the UK of women in leadership roles. And, there'll be obvious reasons for this, right? I mean, as females, we're going to have children if we want children. So you've got to take that into consideration. What happens to your role when you're off on maternity, who covers it, is there going to be a job for you when you come back, how do you feel about that? So that always plays in. I think for me, there are sacrifices with any role, and if you want to be a woman with your own business in a leadership role, you will have to, you can't, when people say you can have it all, yes, you can have it all, but there is sacrifices that you're going to have to make.
Of course.
And I went back to work after 9 weeks of having my son. I wanted to, by the way, it wasn't because work wouldn't let me. I actually wanted to get back in the driving seat. And, you make sacrifices with your home life. So in the early days, probably in the first 5 years, you'd be bringing work home with you. You'd be constantly thinking about it in your mind all the time. Like you just there was no off button. I've got to a place now after nearly a decade of running the business where I can switch off. But that's only because I've got a team around me. Whereas in the early days, it was just me. And doing all the jobs. So it's only now, but so when you start your own business, it's full on.
It is, and that's even outside of fintech. That's whatever business you've got, it's all consuming in those first few years. You are doing everything. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the treatments. If you're doing a practitioner, you're doing all your tech and getting everything uploaded. You're doing everything. So you do take it home with you.
And then, especially within finance, I think a lot of the workforce we've already said is male. So then I think. As a woman, and a fairly young woman, like I was only I can't remember, but late 20s, I think, at the time. I'm 36 now, so take 8. Told you I wasn't good at maths. And so what I found quite was the difficult and challenging was the dynamic between me and an older men, who I found that dynamic to manage people that were older than me.
They've been doing it 30 years.
They've been doing it 30 years because they look at me thinking, what is she doing? She's got no background in finance. She can't even add up. What is she doing running a finance company? And so you already had that laid on top of your imposter syndrome because you actually agree with them. Because you're like,
I get it.
I get it. I don't know. It just seems to have happened. And then, so you've got that. So you're already on the back foot a little bit. And then obviously they'll come with their own preconceived ideas, right? And so that can be a bit challenging. So you have to be really confident, I think, and hold your own, especially in the boardroom. So I think we have got 2 females on the board now, me being one of them, but the rest are men. And not let your voice get drowned out.
Yes.
So
It's a challenge, but it's one that you've done really, really well. So well done on that, and I think it's inspiring for everyone listening. Okay, so what would you say to someone then trying to build their business up from nothing? What would you say is the most important thing?
I would try and have a look at analysing the market that you want to operate in and see where the gaps are. Is there anything that the market's missing? Like, what could your USP be? Is there going to be USPB? Is there anything you can do slightly differently that's going to give you an edge in whatever industry you're going in? And then work out your game plan. Do your business plan. And your action list, what you need to achieve. Which
kind of brings me on to that actually about the partnership. How has the Payl8r and FACES relationship developed over time? And what have you guys learned from us? And I suppose what we've learned from you through that partnership.
We've learned more. I suppose we've learned more about the aesthetics industry. It's been for us because we were in the industry before we partnered with FACES, and I think partnering with FACES just kind of embedded us further into the industry. And also with Ash and Ben at the helm, they were able to provide more insight about the industry, and we felt probably more comfortable about and expanding within the sector, and a bit safer because we had that partnership.
I suppose you could just go to them and go, okay, so if we decide to do this, what's the problem with that? And they can do it with you and say, well, we kind of want to offer this, but actually what's the problem with that with the FCA? Or so I suppose, like you say, you both need that thing out of one another.
And I think they were going through, I think we were, I can't remember how long the partnership's been now, but it's been a couple of years, hasn't it? So they would just kind of, they're going through the same journey that we had gone through. So as a startup, building something, they would we were doing the same thing, but we were just a bit further ahead. So we've been able to kind of
get where they're coming from.
Get where they're coming from, help as much as we can. Like we've been there, done it, tell them the pitfalls. and we're obviously really great friends now off the back of it. So, you know.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Relationships are everything. So what's coming for Faces and Payl8r in the next 5 years?
What's up next is just continuing to roll out Payl8r and increasing the adoption of Payl8r across the Faces platform. We've just released the new booking link, I believe, which Payl8r is embedded in. They've got the websites that they're building for clinics. So some fantastic stuff, all of which Payl8r is fundamental part of kind of the checkout process, right? So it's about trying to increase the adoption of Buy Now Pay Later, just letting Faces clinics understand the benefits of it. I mean, I think it's kind of, you know, I mean, it goes without saying, I think we're all used to using Buy Now Pay Later. So we can all see the benefit. And so now it's just a case of getting more people signed up, really.
For those listening that haven't signed up yet, which is wild. If you're listening, you've still not signed up through Faces for use of Payl8r. There's so many benefits to having it, isn't there? But like you said earlier, it's the splitting down of payments.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you may have gone from a client who couldn't afford to have the higher package or the hair extensions, for example, to now suddenly they can actually book in and afford it. So you will likely increase your sales, your cart value, but also your sales by having it.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, if someone else is offering it and you're not, you're at a disadvantage, you know, competition-wise.
Massively.
So, you know, there's helping your customers spread the payments so they feel it's more accessible for them to get treatments. And then it's also, well, if I'm not offering it and someone else is offering it down the road, then you're going to miss that customer because equally, a lot of customers, that's what they're looking for.
It is.
You know, so you've got to think about that. You know, the pros of Payl8r is most of the customers that we get through Faces do take the 3-month interest-free option because the average order value tends to be around that kind of 250 mark. But your customers can also split the cost over 6-12 months as well.
Wow.
So we do offer the longer term ones for the higher value goods, but most people do tend to just split that between 3 months interest-free. So we do, the clinics that are currently offering Payl8r on their Faces checkout see a tremendous uptake on the finance and some great acceptance rates, some great conversion rates.
Yeah. So those of you listening that, you know, still haven't quite gone in and submitted that insurance document and submitted your training certifications yet, you know, please do, because the Faces team will pass it on to Payl8r, and it's quite quick, isn't it, to actually onboard people once they've got all their documentation.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take long to roll it out. So it's easy. So how can people sign up for Payl8r through the Faces app then? It is literally just certificates, insurance. I think they're the main requirements, aren't they?
Yeah. And obviously the bank details so we can pay you.
Obviously bank details so that you be paid. And then the Faces team will go and deal with that for you. They'll pass that all on to Payl8r, and you'll just basically get an acceptance email at that point that you've been verified to, you know, sign up to Payl8r insurance, and then you can pop that on there.
Yeah.
So it's more of an integration, isn't it, between Payl8r and Faces app. So what that means is, for those listening, is that it's integrated through our system. So all you literally have to do is provide your booking link or provide your consent form, and automatically your customer is then going to be able to access the finance through there. So there's no need to promote it. You haven't got to put banners or anything anywhere. You've literally just got to send them a booking link or consent form.
That's right.
And they can access it straight through.
And that's it. And that's really important because it's Faces who are the introducer of finance. So let Faces do all the heavy lifting. They're going to have Payl8r on all your consent forms, as you said, and your booking link. So that's all you need to do as a practitioner. You
It's
can't
so
actually,
simple.
it's really simple, you know. And when you sign up with us, we provide you all the material and training, what you can and can't do.
It takes all the pressure off you as a practitioner worrying about all the ins and outs of finance, because Faces shoulder all of that for you.
Exactly.
So you literally be able to get all the benefits out of offering finance with none of the sort of responsibility or issues around any of it, which is amazing.
And it is important that as a, you know, in order to offer finance, you have to have an FCA license. As a clinic, you don't have that. Faces do have the permission. So it's really important to let Faces do that introduction to finance by their booking link and not the individual clinic. So that's a really important point to mention.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I suppose then we've come to the end of the episode now, Sam. Like, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. We've taken up loads of your afternoon. I know how busy you are. But just for those of them that are interested in Payl8r, where can they find out more about Payl8r? What's the website?
Yeah, www.payl8r.com.
Brilliant.
And when you log into your Faces portal, you can find some information about us in there. I think, I mean, you might be able to tell the audience better than I can, but I think there's a section there that says
There
Finance
is,
Hub.
yeah, we've got everything there. By all means, go on the website for Payl8r if you just want to find out more of everything about it. But of course, come through the Faces app. You can apply through the Faces app. That's what you'll need to do if you need to apply for it. But also, if you've got any questions, you can reach out to the Faces team. So the Faces team will answer anything. We've got a finance specialist on there that can answer all your questions to do with Payl8r Finance. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank
You've
you.
been amazing.
Thank you for going easy on me. It's
No.
always nerve-wracking, isn't it? These
Yeah,
things?
it is, but you've been amazing.
Thanks.